Okay, we are live. Sasha, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you loud and clear.
Yay! Okay. So for those who were watching earlier or who were not watching, I guess, we tried to do this about an hour ago at uh, another location where I had a better setup, or at least I thought I did, but the internet Wi-Fi connection wasn't working too hot. So it sounds like it's working now, right, Sasha? Do I still sound okay?
Yeah, you sound perfectly fine.
Fabulous. So do you. Awesome. Well, let's create an awesome show for our listeners. Um, Guys, today I really wanted to talk about the Black Hebrew Israelites. They're a group that I personally never really knew much about, but I had heard about. My friend Sasha here emailed me a link to a YouTube video, I don't know, like 4 months ago or so, of a Seventh day Adventist Christian pastor who was promoting some of the ideology of the Black Hebrew Israelite movement, which was a little shocking and even embarrassing for me as a Jew who's also a Seventh day Adventist. And this past week, when an assailant entered a Jewish supermarket and killed 3 Jewish people there, it is documented that it was reported that he had an interest in the Black Hebrew Israelite movement. So today we really wanted to focus on who are these people and where are they from and how did they develop this ideology. With me
Yeah,
here today is Sasha Blotnikov, who has his PhD in Judaic Studies from Hebrew Union College, which is a very prestigious, fabulous Jewish university here in Ohio. Where is it again?
yeah. I was in Ohio because it has 3 campuses in the United States: in New York,
Uh-huh.
in LA, and in Cincinnati, Ohio. Also, a campus in Jerusalem. But their School of Graduate Studies is in Cincinnati, Ohio.
Okay, awesome. And this school trains rabbis and cantors. And actually, in fact, back in the day, my cousin was actually the head of their cantorial department. He was a cantor himself. So my family has connections to that school. And what's really interesting about Sasha Bolotnikov is that he also has a degree from the Christian University, Andrews University, and he is a professor now with Andrews University through the Shalom Learning Center, which is a center that he directs with the North American Division for Seventh-day Adventists. So Sasha has an awesome background. He is both Jewish and Seventh-day Adventist, and he has a master's degree in Old Testament theology from Andrews and Judaic Studies from Hebrew Union College. Today, Sasha, we want you to educate us about what I'm just going to call the BHIs, because it's a mouthful to say the Black Hebrew Israelites. So tell us about the BHIs. Who are they and what's up with that group?
This group is about the identity, I would say, to summarize. What they believe that real Israelites are the ones who ended up in West Africa. Particularly in some of their literature, they cite the tribe of Igbo, which is in Ghana and Nigeria. And then they were brought as slaves to America. And so this is why they believe that they are the real Israelites, they're the real Jews, but the ones like me and you, we're not real Jews. We're fakes. And so anybody,
We're imposters. They
yeah,
consider
yeah,
us
yeah.
imposters, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
we're imposters. So anybody of white people, usually they who call themselves Jews, they think they are really encroaching upon their identity. And unfortunately, I've seen several very, very offensive and violent videos where the preachers from that BHI movement on the streets of New York and Toronto are attacking, not physically, but mainly verbally, attacking the Jews. And the targets of their attacks are mainly Hasidic Jews because they're very easily identified. Because, like, unless you tell everybody you're Jewish, people wouldn't know. But Hasidic Jews are dressed in a way that tells everybody who they are. And so to the BHI followers, they're the main offenders of, they see them as attacking their identity. And so I was looking, and unfortunately, I saw several sympathizers of the BHI ideology within a Seventh-day Adventist church, and I was just dreading that this is a bomb that is waiting to, a hatred bomb that is waiting to explode. And it is very, very sad that it became self-fulfilling prophecy.
Wow. Okay. So let's recap here. So the Black Hebrew Israelites are African Americans, mainly here in the United States. And let's be clear, this is not mainstream African American at all. This is just like what would you say, an offshoot or a sect of African Americans who are a minority within a minority. And unfortunately, I feel bad actually for.
Let's just tell our viewers the history of it. The BHI ideology, the way we know it today, originated in the United States in 1870s, so shortly after the Civil War. It's mostly it started mostly as nonviolent ideology that was just trying to assume some kind of identity. That was the desire of the founders of BHI.
Why were they seeking an identity?
As they say, we were taken from our land, meaning Africa, by white slave owners. We don't have our own identity. We need to find our identity. Unlike the white people who know Irish or Norwegian or British, we were. They basically say that we were deprived of our history and our identity. And so this is what's behind this ideology.
So you're saying these immigrants from Jamaica and other Caribbean islands came to the United States?
Yes. What happens is what's interesting, and when you mention a small group, the way we see the development of the leadership and main ideology of BHI movement is among the Jamaican immigrants, and when I met in Adventist churches young men and women who subscribe to this ideology, I discovered that they're either immigrants from Jamaica or from Haiti.
Haiti, interesting. So why Jamaica? I mean, why Haiti? I mean, what and why did they want to take over Jewish identity? Why not another type of identity?
Jamaica was very famous among different movements, their religious movements and religious ideas. I cannot pinpoint about Haiti because Haiti has many African cults and religions on the island in the country. But Jamaica, while it also has some representatives of African religions, but it does have all different ideas and groups that are trying one way or another identify themselves with Israel and somewhat with Jews. And the reason for this, because Jamaica, as known, was initially the headquarters or the hub for the Caribbean piracy during the 1600s. And it was interesting. My discovery, my personal discovery, was interesting that it was basically some of the pirates of Caribbean were Jews.
That's fascinating. That's fascinating. I mean, I've never heard of like the Jewish pirates of the Caribbean before, but I guess, you know, there's always something new to learn. So wait a second. These Jews, from my understanding, became pirates because they were kicked out of Spain, and they found the Spanish stealing gold from South America. They had nothing because the Spaniards stole what they had. And to basically maybe get back at them and also have something to live off of, they ended up pirating these Spanish boats from South America, stealing the gold, going to Jamaica, and then marrying into the Jamaican culture, marrying Jamaican women who then converted to Judaism. And this is how the Jewish religion got introduced originally, basically really for the first major time to Jamaicans. But tell me again, why did these boats, or why did these Jews specifically choose Jamaica? How did they land in Jamaica?
Okay, so you almost told the story. That's correct. Spanish Inquisition, which forced Jews to convert to Christianity and then tortured and killed those Jews who did convert to Christianity, suspecting them to be insincere Christians. Eventually, the edict of Queen Isabella and King Ferdinand in 1492, the infamous Alhambra edict, that according to which Jews had to either convert to Judaism or leave Spain. So this was known as a catastrophe of Spanish Jewry, which actually in history kind of a second major disaster for Jewish people as the Holocaust. So the result of it was that some Jews left to Holland and met and to England. And some of them learned about the piracy at the 16th century, 17th century. This is the golden age of Queen Elizabeth I, and Britain under Elizabeth I was a rival of Spain. So Spain controlled South America, British controlled Caribbean islands. So Spain was robbing South America, bringing gold to Spain with many ships.
But why did they land in Jamaica?
Oh, it was just strategically very important, a very good island.
Okay, so the Jews landed there because specifically, mainly they were on the boats stealing gold, and
yeah,
they ended.
The Jews were in the pirate ship cruise. You know.
Okay, pirate ship.
They were cruise. They were on the ships with Sir Francis Drake, serving in his clandestine pirate army that actually secretly served the British crown and gave the cut of the gold to Queen Elizabeth as a portion, because that's from the ships, Spanish ships they robbed in the Caribbean. So the base for these pirates was Port Royal, Jamaica.
Okay, so they end up in Jamaica, and this is how Jamaicans learn of Judaism? Because back in the day of the 1600s, when the Jews were expelled from Spain and then they became these pirates and then they land in Jamaica, these were like Orthodox, more religious Jews, not the secular Jews that you see today.
No. Well, there is a synagogue. They built a synagogue in
No,
Jamaica.
meaning like they were, or like they weren't secular. They were religious.
Yeah, religious.
Right.
Religious.
And so they brought their Jewish ideology, their biblical teachings to the Jamaican people because they married into their culture. And
it's kind of a little bit different. Of course, on the ships, there were all Jewish men. But of course, eventually any man wants the woman and wife and so forth. So what British were doing in Jamaica, besides having this island as a base for piracy, they also grew sugarcane there. And to grow, to work on sugarcane plantation, they needed slaves. So they would import slaves from Africa. This is how African women ended up, and men too, Africans ended up in the shores of Jamaica. So what happened next is, of course, you have different religious interaction. And in this religious interaction, what you have is you have Christian missionaries trying to convert these Africans who were pagans to Christianity, which they did. And then you have Jews who were marrying African women. But to marry an African woman, a Jew who is not secular need to make sure she's Jewish. So she converts to Judaism. And this is where the thing is. Okay. In Judaism, you are adopted. So if you're not Jewish by birth, by conversion, you are adopting. It's like if Johnson's adopted some baby boy and make, this is the father, even though they're not his birth parents, but now he has this baby boy who is orphan.
Okay.
Grandparents and so forth.
I got it. So let's move on. No, but that was very, very helpful. So when 200 years later, when Jamaicans are brought to America immigrating, or did you say they came as slaves?
No, Jamaican immigrants. Of course, slavery was abolished in Jamaica much earlier than in the United States. But so Jamaicans were not did not have slavery for some time, even before and so they were coming end of 19th century as immigrants,
and they were seeing the segregation, of course, in America.
Yes.
And would you say that
there was much less white people in Jamaica? And there was no segregation, but in the United States, in the South, definitely there was serious segregation, even after the slavery was abolished.
Is this what led some of them to embrace an ideology different, like embrace an identity of Judaism, or that they were the true Israelites instead of embracing their African ancestry?
Yes, basically, what I hear, the people why they joined the Black Hebrew Israelite movement is the first thing they said when I ask, an Adventist young man or woman who raised in Caribbean islands, such as Jamaica or Haiti, and came very often as the first generation immigrant like I am. And I asked them, why in the world are you interested in this ideology? What do you not like in Adventism? Like, you went through a wise, it's very traditional. And, in Caribbean islands, Adventist teaching is extremely, extremely strong and also popular and very biblical oriented. So why are you looking for? And they say, racism.
So they say because of racism, they are looking outside of their heritage
Yeah,
and
they're
looking
looking.
for a
It's
new
so
heritage.
so. It was mainly it's mainly fueled. This ideology become popular because, unlike Caribbean islands, which doesn't have these issues because there was no segregation for many generations. But in America, segregation began to end with the civil rights movement. So the protest against the racism, that's what gives fuel to the people, and they join this ideology of Black Hebrew Israelites.
Okay. So where are we today? I mean, so after the this was the early or late, you said late 1800s?
Yeah, it was the late
So
1800s.
late 1800s, this movement gets started, and they start to. Is there any biblical basis or any historical or geographical basis for how the BHIs claim that they are the true biblical Israelites? I mean, what are they leaning on to prove that?
Actually, they leaning on some faulty facts and some so-called archaeological findings that, in their opinion, are the proof. But they go from a very faulty understanding of what happened to the 9 tribes of Israel, because and this whole speculation about the 9 tribes of Israel, it's actually very popular in America of the late 1800s. So I mean, the Bible teaches us that after the King Solomon died, the big Davidic kingdom, which was of Israel, it was 12 tribes. The tribes are the clans that were formed by the 12 sons of Jacob.
Mm-hmm.
So all of these tribes were united under King David and his son Solomon, who built the temple. But then Israel fell into the problem of Solomon had too many wives and so forth, and idol worship. As a result, the kingdom of David split. The southern part, which became known as Judah, which included tribe of Judah and tribe of Benjamin, stayed around Jerusalem and the temple. The northern part, which had 9 tribes, such as Ephraim, Manasseh, Asher, Dan, whatever,
Okay.
they went into idolatry. Then, according to the 2 Kings chapter 17, God was sending them prophets and such as Elijah, Elisha, Amos. Didn't help. They kept going ways of idolatry, and eventually Assyrian king conquered the capital of this northern kingdom of Israel, known as Samaria, and burned it. And all the people in this area, which was the northern part of Israel, he deported. But the Bible is very clear. Where did he deport them? He deported them into the east, into the areas where now is Iran and Afghanistan.
And when you say the Bible's very clear on that, which book of the Bible exactly is pointing in that direction?
That is 2 Kings chapter 17. The whole
Okay, so you're
chapter
saying
is
basically that the 17th chapter of 2 Kings talks about where these 12 tribes were expelled to.
the 9 tribes. It
The
says
9
where
tribes.
they were expelled.
Okay.
And then also we have the book of Amos. The book of prophet Amos is
Real quick, sorry. So the BHIs, they're claiming something different than the book of 2 Kings chapter 17. They're claiming that the Jews were
They were
exiled somewhere
claiming
else.
that these 9 tribes went to Africa and ended up on the on Atlantic shores of West Africa, and that's why they make claim that these 9 tribes are the tribe of Igbo in Ghana and Nigeria.
Okay, so I mean, if the Bible's clear on it, where are they getting confused?
They're getting confused because they don't. They have very interesting, funny interpretations of the Bible. For example, part of their teaching is that they see themselves as slaves in Egypt. So, in their interpretation of the book of Exodus, uh, they see that the United States is Egypt, and so they see themselves as Israel. And the
Okay.
reason for this is I love the old spirituals. I grew up reading Harriet Beecher Stowe in Russian, and so my first introduction to American music was actually Louis Armstrong.
Nice.
And my favorite song was with his horsey voice, "Go Down, Moses."
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah, and so, but I don't think Louis Armstrong or the author of this spiritual really meant literally what the BHIs are teaching. In other words, yes, during the time of slavery, when slaves were introduced to the Bible, the story of Israel in this Egyptian slavery resonated in the society of slaves who were in America. But only BHIs actually teach that literally. In other words, they replace the Hebrews, the Jews, Jews is not a correct way to say it back then, but the Israelites, the sons of Jacob, who were under the Pharaoh, and we know the story how they got there and so forth. They replace it and they say it is not about them; it's about us.
Okay. So they're into replacement theology in a sense, but a different type of replacement theology.
This is the type of replacement theology.
Okay.
But on the other hand, I should inform.
And let's just be clear: replacing the Jewish people. There are different versions of replacement theology. Traditionally, replacement theology means something else, which we'll cover in another show. But in this terminology, we're saying that they believe the Jews of like today, like Caucasian Jews, if you want to call them that, are replaced by African Jews. Real quick, Sasha, because we don't have much time left. You know, the Southern Poverty Law Center, which is like an advocacy group, and they measure hate groups in the United States and possibly abroad. I haven't checked that, but they are claiming that the BHI group, the Black Hebrew Israelites, are a hate group. And they're also saying they're anti-Semitic. Would you explain to us why it makes sense that they are anti-Semitic? Because some people would say, how can they be anti-Semitic? They're not, most of them aren't shooting any Jews. They're just claiming that the Jews of today are not the real Jews and they're the Jews. So what about that is anti-Semitic?
Well, what they, the Jews to them are the sword in the thumb. In other words, they believe that people like me and you, and especially Hasidic Jews who are dressed to show how they're Jewish, they believe that they're stealing what really belongs to them. And that's what makes it anti-Semitic, because
right. So what you're saying is like they've created this hatred towards us because they feel like we have stolen something from them. They feel that we are the bad guys because we have usurped their identity. And you were telling me over the phone the other day that unfortunately, because of the slavery past of Africa and some of the lower educated parts of Africa, just literally thousands of years ago, they don't. Africa, unfortunately, although they have such an amazing, rich heritage in so many ways, they don't have recorded actually a lot of their history, and so it's really actually difficult for them in some ways to lean on their historical heritage because a lot of it isn't recorded. You were mentioning something like that.
Yes, yes, definitely. It's very difficult to trace history of Africa much, because history is based on records. And if you look at the history of the Middle East, even the history of Egypt, there are many records. But when you go to some kind of West Africa, uh, uh, you have some kingdoms, but these kingdoms are very late, so you don't have records. We don't know much of the history. And plus, we have to also understand how the slave trade was done. And the slave trade was basically done by British who were buying slaves from the areas where the local kings were going in the heartland of Africa and
Okay.
kidnapping people. So this
Okay.
becomes even worse. And so, yes, I understand that there's not much history that we can know, and because people didn't come voluntarily, it's not like me and you. I came, I tell my son where we were born and so forth, and I know many people who kind of remember, oh, we came and our ancestors came on Mayflower. I met
Okay. So
Appleton.
what you're saying is because there were not enough official records kept in Africa, it's hard for a lot of African Americans to connect with their roots. I mean, obviously, there is a lot of history, and I know a lot of my own African American friends that are very closely tied to their roots. But are you saying that for some, they want to go, if for some who want to go deeper, they don't really have that capacity to do so because there aren't good, solid historical records, and that's one of the reasons they wanted to usurp the biblical
Yes,
Jewish
yes, yes.
identity?
Because very often, and I'm speaking here because I am historic and ethnography is my passion, and I know
Ethnography?
ethnography. Ethnography,
Ethnography. Okay.
study of
Study of ethnicities. Okay.
yeah, yeah. And so Africa is not just, it's a huge, huge continent, and people are different, cultures are different. When we talk about Kenya and Nigeria, it's the same way. We don't talk about Europe and say Greece and Scandinavia are the same people. Absolutely not. It's different culture. So Kenya and Nigeria, it's different cultures. Zambia and when I talk now countries.
So what are you saying?
What I'm saying is there is a huge cultural diversity as in Africa as well as in Europe, but African culture is not a written culture. That's why we don't
Okay, so it's
have.
not a written culture, and that in combination with the prejudice that these Jamaican immigrants were facing when they came to the U.S. in the 1800s, and them seeing the segregation, which they obviously never saw before in their own country. Some of them, it was easy for some of them to embrace this ideology. Now today, a lot of them are committing anti-Semitic acts because they hate the Jews, because some of them, to be clear, there's several different groups and sects within the BHI movement. Some are loving people, albeit they believe these twisted ideologies, but largely they're anti-Semitic. So, what would you say to a Christian who meets another, because most BHIs actually claim to be Christian as well as Jewish. And that kind of makes this even more complicated because as Christians, we're supposed to, spread message of hope and love and peace. What would you say to the everyday Christian who has a friend or a family member who believes in the BHI ideology or is trying to talk them into it? What would you say that they could share with them to get them out of that ideology? What's interesting is because some of it is really just emotional. It's not even really.
Yeah, it's emotional and it fuels hatred.
And it fuels
emotional
hatred.
and it fuels hatred. It is as a Jew, I would say this: it's very, very sad for me personally because, and I don't know how do you feel about this, but Jews were very, very active in civil rights movement, and the reason why Jews were very, very active in civil rights movement and why I raised the issue, people are different. The color of the skin is not how God differs people. The Bible teaches us people are different, are differentiated by languages. At the Babel and the Tower of Babel, God did not separate people by races. Races were invention of colonizers, basically. So I'm not going to get into that. But the bottom line is, as a Jew, I know what to be in a second-class citizen. In Russia, in Soviet Union, in Tsar Russia, your ancestors were second-class citizens. And for some people who watch us both, they think, why? Because, and this is just unfortunately the lack of broader education, because they think if you are white, then you are automatically privileged. This is not the case. This is not correct. We were, people look at me and they say, are you Russian because I'm speaking with accent? No, I'm not Russian. I am Jewish.
Right.
And
we have a couple more minutes and we got to wrap up, but no, I get you. I get you. It's
so when this is the reason why many Jews participated in civil rights movement, because they could identify
with the black people.
Yes.
With the black people. And I think that the Jews and blacks today largely identify with each other. In fact, I read on the news this morning that that the black community as a whole in Greenville, in New Jersey, where this shooting occurred last week, has been speaking out very much against these African-American shooters and has been saying they don't support their ideology. But at the same time, there has been one strong supporter of these two African-Americans who shot up this Jewish grocery store. And I wanted to just bring that up here as we close real quick. Joan Terrell, who's an elected member of the New Jersey Board of Education, suggested that the murders of the Jews in Jersey City might be justified. And after her rant on just how she felt like the Jewish community there was very prejudiced against blacks, she then says that Mr. Anderson and Mrs. Graham, who were the murderers last week, she said Mr. Anderson and Mrs. Graham went directly to the kosher super. By the way, this is an elected elected official of the Board of Education there in New Jersey. Mr. Anderson and Miss Graham went directly to the kosher supermarket. I believe they knew they would come out in body bags. What is the message they were sending? Are we brave enough to explore the answer to their message? Are we brave enough to stop the assault on the black communities of America? My people deserve respect and to live in peace in this city. I am speaking as a private citizen, not as an elected member of the Jersey Board of Education. These beliefs are mine and mine alone. But I read that and I just couldn't believe that somebody, especially of her stature, would speak as though these murders are justifiable because she believes
Yeah,
the Black community.
this woman
It's just
should be
really sad.
ashamed of herself
Well, yeah, the
because
New Jersey governor is now calling for her resignation, and I hope that, she
yeah,
does
but
resign.
yeah, and this is what we are trying to explain to people, that this ideology is the ideology of hatred.
Yeah.
And if somebody is, I cannot speak for people who are not Christian, but if somebody who is a Christian and is contemplating this ideology, this is a very good citation that you quoted, Rachel, to demonstrate that this is hatred, and this is not about.
And as Christians, and this is why I wanted to do this video for Christians Against Anti-Semitism, it's our mission as Christians in general to fight hatred of all people groups, including the Black community and the Hispanic community and the Asian community, as well as the Jewish community who gave us our Messiah, who gave us the Bible, who gave us so much. It's our duty to protect them, and we should learn about these hateful groups out there. And Sasha, thank you so much for educating us today on the Black Hebrew Israelites. And if any of you have any more questions, you see that this live show was broadcasted here on my Facebook page. Please leave a comment below of any questions that you may have, and we will address them either in our next video or in a separate video following up to this. And Sasha, it's always great to chat with you. We might be doing some more. Yeah, we might be doing some more videos like this. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up and comment, and let us know what other topics you'd like to hear about anti-Semitism in Christianity, or topics related to Jewish history. Whatever questions you have, let us know. And also, please visit supportcaa.com, where you can learn how you can become a sponsor for just $5 a month, $10 a month, whatever you choose to give, helps me as director of Christians Against Anti-Semitism keep live shows like this going. So thank you for your viewership and for your support. Sasha, hopefully we can do another show like this soon. Thank you again for joining me.
Yeah, my pleasure.
All right.
Thanks to all to all our viewers.
Yes. Okay. And Marina Carmody, she says, very informative. Thank you. And yes, we thank you, Marina, for watching. All right. Take care, Sasha.